Australia may soon face one of the most severe droughts in its history, a mega-drought that could last for 20 years or more. This isn't just about a few seasons of dry weather, we are talking about 2 decades of little to no rain. If such a scenario plays out, it could become the longest and most devastating drought since official records began, potentially transforming Australia's landscapes and societies in unprecedented ways. But the consequences won't be limited to the Australian continent alone. The ripple effects of such a drought could extend far beyond, influencing global food supplies, energy markets, and even international migration. As the world's 12th largest economy and a major exporter of agricultural products, Australia's drought would likely disrupt the availability of staples like bread, flour, and cereals across the globe. Neighbouring countries, such as New Zealand, Indonesia, and Malaysia, may need to prepare for an influx of Australian citizens directly affected by the severe lack of water. To truly grasp how catastrophic this could become, we need to explore Australia's history with droughts. Australia has always been a land of extremes when it comes to weather, and droughts are nothing new here. These dry periods can strike across the entire continent, impacting all states and territories. For instance, from 2017 to 2019, southeastern Australia went through what became known as the Tinderbox drought. This event was marked by an extremely dry spell, during which the cooler months saw only about half of the expected rainfall. The lack of water turned large portions of Australia into tinderboxes, setting the stage for devastating wildfires. Water became increasingly scarce, and crops failed in many areas, putting immense pressure on both rural and urban communities. The tinderbox drought is often cited as one of the key factors that led to the Black Summer fire disaster at the end of 2019. During this period, bushfires swept across the country on an unprecedented scale, with some fires described as rivers of lava cascading down from treetops. The losses were staggering. The tourist industry alone lost approximately $2.8 billion, while more than 7,000 jobs were wiped out as a direct result of the fires. This difficult period in Australia's recent history was a stark reminder of what the future might hold if mega-droughts become a recurring feature of life down under. One of the major challenges in predicting such a catastrophic event as a 20-year mega-drought is the limited amount of long-term data on rainfall patterns. Droughts may be a common occurrence in Australia, but official records only date back to around 1900. This century of data is simply not enough for scientists to develop highly accurate predictive models about when or where the next major drought might strike. To fill in the gaps, researchers have turned to tree rings, which act as natural archives of environmental conditions. When you look at a tree stump, you can often see concentric rings on its surface. These rings are formed as the tree grows, and their thickness depends on how much water the tree receives. In times of drought, the rings are thinner because the tree has less water to work with. However, while tree rings provide valuable clues about the past, they are still limited. These natural records typically only go back a few hundred years, and they offer insights into local conditions rather than a comprehensive view of the entire continent. To overcome these limitations, scientists have turned to advanced computer models. These models simulate how Earth's climate has changed over long periods of time, from as far back as the year 850 to the present. Through these simulations, researchers can better understand when megadroughts might have occurred in Australia, and how likely they are to happen again in the future. But there's a pressing question: are human activities making these droughts worse? The answer is complex and still uncertain. On one hand, there's evidence to suggest that dry periods in Australia are lasting longer than they did before industrialization. On the other hand, these dry periods do not appear to be getting more intense or occurring more frequently than they did before the rise of modern industry. This suggests that a drought lasting 20 years may not necessarily be a direct result of human activity. Instead, this type of prolonged drought could be a natural part of Australia's climate cycle. For instance, evidence from ice core samples indicates that eastern Australia experienced a drought lasting 39 years around 800 years ago, long before the Industrial Revolution. What's particularly fascinating about megadroughts is that there isn't a single cause that explains why they happen. These droughts occur when a unique combination of oceanic and atmospheric conditions come together at just the right time. This means that, by random chance, you can have periods where megadroughts last for several decades. Moreover, megadroughts are not confined to one geographical area. They have occurred on every continent except Antarctica over the past 2,000 years. Often, these droughts are linked to natural events like El Niño, a climate phenomenon where the Pacific Ocean near the equator becomes warmer than usual. This warming disturbs normal weather patterns and can lead to prolonged periods of drought. In fact, the southwestern United States has been experiencing a megadrought since the year 2000. This ongoing drought is now considered the driest period for the region in over 1,200 years. Major water reservoirs, such as Lake Mead and Lake Powell, are at alarmingly low levels, and cities like Phoenix and Las Vegas are enduring increasingly intense heat waves. Wildfires are becoming more frequent as the land dries out, and the situation shows no signs of improvement anytime soon. So, what does all of this mean for Australia's future? Although we have real-world examples, like the megadrought in the United States, predicting how a 20-year drought would play out in Australia remains incredibly difficult. Generally, these long-term droughts show up as a significant reduction in rainfall and snowfall. However, in many regions, the increased risk of drought is more closely tied to rising temperatures, which lead to a drier atmosphere. The ground would become parched, rivers and lakes would shrink, and the sky would be relentlessly clear and blue, with hardly a cloud in sight. Farmers, in particular, would struggle under such conditions. The agricultural sector could be severely affected, driving up global food prices for essential goods like bread, flour, and cereals. Australia plays a vital role in the global food supply chain, providing around 13% of the world's wheat exports. If crops fail, it could lead to shortages and higher grocery prices worldwide. Moreover, Australia's coal mining operations, which depend on water for extraction, washing, and processing, could also be hit hard. This could lead to higher energy costs around the world, further exacerbating inflation and slowing economic growth. Cities could also face severe water shortages, forcing Australians to adopt stricter conservation measures. In extreme cases, people may need to relocate to countries like New Zealand or parts of Southeast Asia, which could be seen as more viable options due to their relatively abundant water resources. But when could this all happen? Predicting the timing of a megadrought is incredibly challenging. Megadroughts are known to occur every 150 to 1,000 years, depending on the region. However, many experts believe Australia should start preparing now, as a megadrought could hit within the next decade. It's a scenario that must be taken seriously. Historically, prolonged droughts have been linked to the collapse of entire civilizations. For example, the Akkadians of Mesopotamia, the world's first empire, which existed over 4,000 years ago, may have been brought down by a 300-year drought. Similarly, the Assyrian Empire in northern Iraq, which existed over 2,700 years ago, may have collapsed during a 125-year mega-drought. Although droughts in the past have caused immense suffering and led to the downfall of great empires, today we are better equipped to handle such challenges. Advances in climate science and water management technologies provide us with the tools to mitigate some of the worst effects of a mega-drought. Australia has the time and the resources to prepare, but action must be taken now. Developing robust water conservation plans and creating community support networks, particularly for farmers, will be essential in facing this challenge. In conclusion, while the prospect of a 20-year mega-drought is alarming, it is not inevitable. With the right strategies in place, the impacts of such a drought can be mitigated. Australia must act now to build resilience and protect its citizens, its economy, and its natural resources. Stay informed and dive deeper into this critical issue right here on